Welcome. In a previous video I used some epoxy on this bench that I'm building, and the epoxy I used was System 3 epoxy, and I got this epoxy when I built a Pygmy kayak 16 years ago. So I think I had 2 bottles of resin and 1 of hardener when I ordered it, and I think the epoxy was like $150, I can't remember exactly. But I had some left over, and I've had it sitting around for years. This is getting kind of nasty on the outside of the container here, and the pumps don't work very well anymore. But the epoxy in it was still liquid, so I thought I'd use it. And I used it on the bench build, and I didn't really talk about on the bench build if it actually worked. I mean, it's held together right now, but I have the things that I mixed it in, and I want to look at this and see how it cured. So one thing to point out is the resin is a lot darker than it was when I got it. It had a little bit of a yellow tinge to it when it was new, but it's changed color. It's a lot darker, and this has been stored in somewhat dark place. It hasn't been in front of a window. And the cured epoxy can be damaged by UV, so if you have epoxy, I'm guessing the components can also be damaged by UV. You want to store that away from the sun. So here's a cup I mixed it in. It's kind of sticky on the outside. That's one reason I'm wearing gloves. But I'll see if I can pull this out of here. Well, didn't quite get it out. There we go. So here's the plug at the bottom. And this is where I poured the initial resin and hardener. So it can have some uncured epoxy in it, and that's probably why it's sticky. So this is flexible right now. Now typically this stuff can take a little while to get really hard, and when it gets hard it can almost become brittle. But it does seem to be cured here. And you can see this is like the real thin epoxy here. And then this is the paintbrush. I painted it on like a chip brush, I guess you'd call it. And you can see here, it cured on this surface too. I mean, these are hard. You know, these are like chip brushes, so typically when you put epoxy on you'll use these kind of brushes because they're throwaway. They're super cheap. But you can see that epoxy definitely cured there, and this will have some on it, so this can probably break off of here. Sometimes you wait till it's a little more brittle to get it off, but it's kind of peeling off. And I first mixed it in that smaller container. Oh, we have a spider in here. Wonder where that came from. So I started mixing it in the smaller container, then I poured it into here. So this really shouldn't have a lot of uncured epoxy in it. Let's see if I can pop this out. I don't know. There we go. So there we go. We have cured epoxy there. Looks like it's a little sticky on the very bottom there, but otherwise it cured. So this makes me feel better about my table I built with this, because I have no way of telling if I glued 2 layers together. I have no way of telling if that actually cured or not on in the middle of the table. But you know, looking at this, I can tell that this cured, so it definitely cured there. So epoxy can definitely last a long time if you store it properly. I was actually planning on throwing this away because I didn't think it would work anymore, and it did work. So I'll probably throw this in a corner because that's quite a bit of epoxy in there still. And you know, if I have small projects, I can use this. Now this can get actually it looks like it here. It's kind of crystallized in here. I don't know if that's coming through on camera. It's kind of chunky. So I've had that happen before, and the way I fixed it was putting this in really hot water and actually recycled it a couple times and replaced the hot water again. And that kind of melted it all down and made it liquid again. And I did that probably, I don't know, 7 years ago maybe. And I don't know if it'd still work, but I would try it if I need to use this much epoxy. I'll stick it in some hot water and see if it gets liquid again. So if you want to learn more about epoxy, System 3 does have a book called the Epoxy Book. So if you type in System 3 Epoxy Book, you should be able to find it online. I'll also link to it below in the description. And it's a great book to learn about epoxy. And even if you're not using System 3 products, it's a great book if you want to learn about how epoxy works. And they put the book out there for free. They're hoping you buy their products, and I like their products. This is the only one I've used of, you know, large quantities. I've used like the syringes before, but this was nice to work with. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please click like. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate it if you could do that. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.